Hello Internet, I'm Jackie Fox and today I want to talk to you about some of the new equipment that's come into the game. First, we're going to get started with the newest of the legendary Reliquaries equipment. This is going to be the Marasame and the Yoichi bow. And I think that both of these are incredible pieces of equipment. I'll explain why, but basically they do everything that I would expect to kind of keep them on par with what I'm already equipping to these units, and they do something extra that just puts them over the top that's really special for that specific unit type. And I want to say that people who use ninja blades and people who use bows, they're some of the least supported but also some of the most specific builds in the game. There's not a huge amount of variety with them, so it's really easy to craft an ideal piece of equipment for them, and I think this is kind of what we have in both of these cases. So it's a really easy should you build or should you not. If you have a unit that equips this that you use regularly that's not maybe slime, then you probably want it, because ninjas usually get pretty good chances of getting a critical hit, so it's pretty easy for them to fulfill this, and the extra 15% evasion is just going to be great for all of them, because for the most part they're either evasive or semi-evasive units, so they can all really greatly benefit from this. So I'm not really going to talk too much more about it. It's good. Ninjas are going to love it. Yoichi's bow, so missile attack, accuracy, absolutely on brand for this type of stuff. In fact, a little bit better than you would expect to get as a combination. But also like good attack, good accuracy, and good magic on board. So there's a lot of pretty much anyone who can equip a bow would really like this. I think Fina maybe least of all, second least of all Rosa, but they will both appreciate this quite a bit, because as being your supports, they're really gonna want this hate down. Any archer is really gonna want hate down, because the longer an archer can stay on the board being uncountered, the more damage you are going to do. They are just incredibly impactful units to be able to keep on the board for an extra turn or two, for being the last unit that your opponents go up against. So after they take out your tank, they maybe take out the unit that has neutral or positive hate, and then they go for the one that has negative hate. This will allow you to get off 4 attacks before your hate starts to catch up with you. So this is really impactful for a ranged unit. I love it. But if you don't have a bow user that you use regularly, then this really isn't important to you, and maybe you shouldn't build it. The next piece of equipment that I want to talk about is Lucio's gift. This is pretty much the opposite. It was a free piece of equipment everyone got as a login reward. And like a lot of these types of login rewards, it is very much within a niche and very much worth building up. The stat line on this is pretty terrible. I don't really see using this in maybe PvP at all, maybe even most PvE either, because these stats are just so very bad. The upside to this is that you don't have to spend any seals. Even at level 30, all of these stats are going to max. Just give it the adamantite that it needs and it'll get there. Increase acquired JP 50% for self. That is really the reason that you equip this. This goes on a unit on your JP team along with your producer's headphones or Overwatcher's ear guards, what the fuck ever they decided to call those, and the producer's jacket. This is going to be kind of your third, maybe fourth, maybe fifth piece of JP up equipment. So this is going to help get that extra JP across the team. JP and JP farming has become more and more important with the Transcendence, which is eating up a lot of JP itself and is often even eating up maybe some of your Overlight as well. So when you run out of Overlight or when you're getting low, you're really going to appreciate this 50% JP more. So whenever you hit that, you're really going to wish that you would, well, I mean, you've got it. You'll build it then. I don't know. Build it now so that you don't get to that situation. Let's look at the upgrades on these guys. So we're getting extra agility for self when HP is above 60%. I think that's pretty cool. That's just pretty good. Like, this reminds me a lot of the Crow Cloak, but better. Because you can take a couple hits maybe and still have 60% or more HP, or maybe at least one. The other ones when any amount of damage is dealt, so not quite as good. But 10% agility is quite nice. I like it, especially No, it's just good. So there aren't a lot of like good swords for the mages. 180 magic on this is pretty good. Spirit penetration is good at shoring up damage, but probably not the best passive I can think of for this. Definitely units that would appreciate it though. The 10%, that's just really good though. I like that. I like that as an upgrade. For Celeste's sword, it's a bit more disappointing in my opinion, because this went from 3 turns to 4 turns. Having 15% more HP for 1 more turn is good. It does mean that she's safer a little bit longer. This is impactful, but like, wow, it just doesn't feel like a lot. I guess. I mean, maybe I'm underestimating how important this is, but this was already a sword that I was kind of on. The only reason that it really sees a lot of play is that there aren't a lot of magic tanks, and this is very much a magic tanky sword. So I don't know. I'm gonna look. Here's how I would put it. I'm still using this on Celeste, but kind of begrudgingly. I don't think that the upgrade was amazing, but I do think that it very neatly makes it probably the best magic tanky sword for her. If you want to give her more offense, there are other options, but if your main primary goal is survivability, then this is the sword you're gonna go for, I believe. Locke's dagger is pretty neat for being a defense penetration weapon. Always handy, much like our spirit penetration weapon, helps keep your damage consistent, but isn't always super applicable, isn't necessarily the best passive to have. However, Human Killer, when attacking with physical attacks for self, remove after 2 hits received. This is pretty great. I like this quite a bit, especially combined with defense penetration. It really paints the picture of a unit that's doing big and consistent damage, even against tanks. And also this condition's a little bit awkward, but it does help mitigate the incredible power that this has. There's still going to be a lot of units that could equip this that are going to get into place quickly, deal damage quickly, and just that first hit being this much stronger could be hugely impactful, even if they take a couple hits afterwards and don't have this buff later. If it's enough to push them over the edge in taking out a unit initially, that can be pretty good. But other than that, the builds aren't great. I mean, it's okay, but it's not necessarily anything to write home about. I don't think that this is a lot of accuracy. This is okay critical, and you still have decent attack on it, but I don't really necessarily see any reason to build a critical for this. The assault is probably just king, just to pump your damage as much as you want. So if you're really going like hard DPS, i.e. you aren't running something else for evasion support or something else like that, this is going to be a pretty powerful weapon worth investing in for the future. Now we go into some of the older Reliquaries weapons. I think these are way more must-have than the newer ones for a lot more players, in that there are a lot of people who can equip this. Just a lot of people who equip swords in the game, so wow. This is going to be pretty impactful. It's got the Human Killer that I was praising unconditionally. So that's pretty great. No 2 hits for self, and this is removed shenanigans. Slash attack 20 mod is pretty standard for being good. As you've seen, 15 on some other things and 20 on some of these legendary weapons. So here's the special effect, and it is going to absorb 15% damage done per critical hit. So if you have a unit that equips swords that hits criticals consistently, like say, I don't know, here's one, Titus. Titus is a good example of this, or even Elna can be, although the magic isn't as amazing on this build. And you know, you actually aren't getting a lot of support for your own critical rate, so you do want to have either the gear or the character that can support the critical themselves, which does limit this a bit, and I'm kind of thankful for that, or the sword would just be absolutely busted. But I think that this is really strong for increasing the survivability for sword wielding units that can regularly hit criticals. Just a great piece of equipment to have. And then the Genji glove. Okay, so the biggest thing for me about the Genji glove, other than it having like the 60 attack and magic, 502 attack is a pretty good stat line. This is nothing to write home about, but the defense 18 is pretty good. Vertical rate 16 is alright. Getting all of those things together though is really impressive. It reminds me a lot of the elemental rings, but without the restriction of only people of their element can equip them, at least in terms of stat lines. It also increases all damage by 10%, whether that be physical or magical. So no drain force increase here, as that is neither, but everything that's not drain force to my knowledge will be getting increased by this, so that's pretty cool. 50% paralyze resistance, 50% toad resistance. I don't think the toad resistance is super relevant, but that is pretty cool against Halloween Lucia, maybe Miche, some units like that that you might see in limited, but mainly Halloween Lucia, which you might see outside of limited on occasion. But this paralyzed resistance is really important. I think might actually be super important in the legendary reliquaries themselves, because since they are very like turn limited, I think it is potentially really important to have a unit that is able to get around some of the shenanigans like paralyze that are here, and maybe even like you put this on your support potentially so that they don't get paralyzed and they can cast an AoE Asuna, so that your units aren't wasting time being paralyzed in a format that is very, very much wanting you to not waste your turns. This is Kefka's gloves. It's good for Kefka, otherwise it's a spirit penetration glove. So it, you know, there's that. None of the stats really impress me on this. And, you know, unless you're Kefka, it just doesn't seem very good. At least not yet. I mean, especially in comparison to +6 gear being available. For anyone but Kefka, this is just a kind of a no-go. Yeah. Just to add one more thing to this, for all of those of you who have continued to stick around to the end of this video, I'd like to know how my fire players feel about Kefka coming a bit early. It feels like this creates a continuous line of impactful and increasingly expensive fire limited units. I mean, I feel like the sense of fire FOMO that must exist has to be pretty rough. Is that not where you're at? Because I'm just kind of glad, even more glad than I expected to be, honestly, that I don't have to worry about being a fire player. Because this just seems kind of annoying. Is it not? Like, am I getting the wrong idea here? I don't know. Anyways, let me know how you feel about that in the comments. And with that being said, I am going to try to get this last little piece of this mission that I need. Just got to get the 3 kills. I mean, I don't really have to for any reason other than I kind of want to. to be completely honest with you. But let's do it. Anyways, I'm gonna let this play me out, and I'll see you in the next one.